And welcome back to the second game of the LEC Spring Split finals. G2 looked absolutely dominant in game one, demolishing Fnatic, and now we're straight on into the second draft. I wonder how Fnatic are going to adapt, because at the moment, it's Kalista and Syndra banned from them, and Pantheon from G2.
Yeah, it looks like that we're mirroring what we saw in game one. Will the Yuumi? Yes, it will. Okay, so now the question is, what does the first pick become? Will we see a Gragas come out from Fnatic? Will they still choose to prioritize the Aphelios? Because, as Yamato was saying on the desk, the lack of an Aphelios Thresh, I think, was a big part of what removed some of the big playmaking potential that Fnatic has often had in the past. And I really like this ban coming through from G2. So they're sticking to it, Mikyx, alright? Fnatic saying, alright, we don't think that the, well, they must have thought that some problems were in the draft, but G2 can then just answer with the same thing. Azir and Jarvan immediately just going to come out and, wow, okay, we're still going to see the Tahm Kench.
I will just quickly, before we get further on in this draft, Vedius, I know you're going to want to talk about the Ornn. We did get some questions about the first draft and how fast it was. As you should know, the LEC is on a slight broadcast delay for competitive integrity. During the draft, Selfmade reported his runes weren't working, therefore he dropped out after everything was locked in. That's why we went through the draft so quickly last time, but we are going through things pretty quickly this time as well, with the Ornn being locked in for Fnatic.
Okay, cool. That's interesting content. Yeah, this draft is still going very quickly as well. Wow, okay. G2's gonna pick Bwipo's top lane Zac into him. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. Now, remember that Fnatic is known for swapping their Ornn between top and mid lane. Nemesis, one of his most played champions, is actually Ornn this split, so it wouldn't surprise me if Fnatic look to flex that, and they do have that option available to them. Now we can see G2, as we move into the second half, start to ban away some of the big answers into the Azir. Corki's going to be banned away. LeBlanc would normally be banned, but LeBlanc is not something that we normally see Nemesis play. G2 may look to take something away like the Yasuo, given that Gragas is still up. Instead, they'll actually just ban away the Gragas, so perhaps they're not as afraid of a Yasuo if there's no Gragas to complement it.
It definitely makes sense. You get rid of one of the knock-up tools for the Yasuo, and you remove a lot of the ability for Selfmade to really coincide with Nemesis. And also, you never know, maybe G2 want to take a Yasuo themselves. You already have the Zac knockup, you've got knockups from Jarvan, knockback from Azir.
I mean, I'd be surprised if they did, unless they wanted to play at bot lane, which maybe.
I'm still entertaining the idea that this could be Zac support as well, Vedius. So
that is true, that is a good point there.
A lot of different possibilities. Ezreal and MF removed by Fnatic. We'll see where G2 decide to go with their pick. Either support or, well, probably support here, unless that Zac is support, and then it'll be top lane pick for G2.
Yeah, we could see another Lulu. It could very well be possible. It looks like, wow, G2's actually going to save their support pick for last, because, as you rightly said, the Zac could still go in support. I think you'd have a very weak bot lane if you do Kog'Maw plus Zac, but it is still a possibility. Meanwhile, Fnatic now answering with the Trundle. This means that he is very good as a duelist in the early game. If Fnatic can get themselves a strong mid laner, they're going to go for the scaling mid laner. Okay, this is some big adaptation from Fnatic, because now they have a very powerful side lane presence. They're going to lose all priority in the mid lane, though. But this is very important to acknowledge, and ways in which teams can punish and abuse this Kassadin in the early game, and something that G2 has showcased many times before, how well they can use mid priority to impact the rest of the map. But because of how slow G2's comp overall is, with the Kog'Maw and the Azir scaling up very similar to what we saw in the last game, perhaps Fnatic are relying on the fact that they can win by playing through a side lane if they get to that point in the game. So I'm starting to think that Fnatic now have a lot more late game options with this Kassadin on their side.
Well, we saw how their lack of late game options really cost them last game at that, and the lack of a real strong tank. They have the Ornn here. As you say, they have a bit more scaling from the Kassadin, so Fnatic have a more well-rounded composition. I do worry for Nemesis in the mid lane against the Jarvan and against the Azir early on. Kassadin's not going to have the easiest of times, and once again, we see Mikyx going back to an Enchanter support. This is a guy that really inspired me to play engaged supports on on his Pyke, on his Thresh, and it's been a while since we've seen him really like pop off on one of those engaged supports. Decided to go for a more supportive support role here, Vedius.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of Yuumi from him. We've been seeing a lot of Lulu. Who knows what other support picks he's still got left
Nami
to show. Yeah, maybe we'll have to wait and see. But I'm excited to coming into Game 2. Fnatic have clearly made some adaptations. My biggest concern for them right now is the lack of mid priority, and they definitely have a lot more engage thanks to the Ornn. But you want to talk about engage? Zach Jarvan, pretty terrifying. It's very strong at starting off fights. That front-to-back comp that G2 is going to have is still very prevalent. And unless this Kassadin can get strong enough to generate pressure in a side lane, if they try to play straight 5v5, Kassadin against a Lulu, unless he's trying to kill the Lulu, is not going to have that much execute because he has the Lulu ultimate to get through and the exhaust that is coming out from Mikyx as well. So I still think that if Fnatic try to play these late game 5v5s, the front-to-back is definitely much more favorable for G2.
Polymorph makes it really difficult as well for the Kassadin
exactly,
if it's not used to buff up the Kog'Maw. Do you want to bring attention to the fact that PERKZ is running Teleport instead of the Cleanse here, so he'll be able to get on into those skirmishes a little bit earlier, and I wonder if we'll see Fnatic going for that 5-man dive as they did in the last game.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm excited because even when you have scaling comps between these two teams, you never have scaling. You always have a lot of action in the early game, and a lot of it is just because of how these teams use their early priority. And when we kind of look at options where teams can look to play in the early game, let's see if Rekkles and Hylissang look to do what they did in the last game, where they tried to get deep vision on the bot side of G2's jungle, and then utilize that fact to force Caps and Mikyx to play a little bit more defensively in this 2 versus 2 so that they can't use their long range to harass and poke out the Tom and the Aphelios. Meanwhile, in the top lane, you're just going to have two tanks just kind of hitting on each other, and there is a lot of gank potential because the great thing about tanks is usually they have a lot of good setup, and when you pair things like the Ornn with a Trundle Pillar, it's actually very easy for them to coordinate a good gank onto Zach. The problem, of course, is that he has a very easy tool of being able to jump away, which can be interrupted by the Trundle Pillar. So if we're actually going to see any early ganks, I expect them to be topside, very similar to what we saw last game. But of course, G2 do have that big prio in the mid lane, so eyes will definitely be on PERKZ and how he uses that around the map.
We had a great game on this in the last game. We do just have a short pause in game. There's a voice comms issue which League officials are investigating, which is why you get to keep listening to Vedius and I talk about this. So, as you say, Vedius, like lots of, well, possibly ganks up towards the top lane. PERKZ a key focus for G2, and I think having PERKZ as your key focus definitely seems to work out, because in the last game he had a stellar performance on the Azir, and even though Caps was rattling out the damage, it was really the PERKZ show.
Yes, I think that his positioning in fights was very good, his use of the wall was very good, and I think it's funny, as someone that's been watching League for a long time, PERKZ used to be the guy that had a little song made after him. My Rise is bad. My Azir is bad, my Rise is worse. You guessed it right. I'm G2 PERKZ. And I think that those days have long gone.
I watched Twitch chat videos. They're not gone. That song is
but
still
I mean,
there.
His Rise was one of his best champions, right? And that was very recently too. Back when he played at Worlds in 2018, or 2019 rather. Well, both of them, in fact. No, not 2019, 2018. That
2018,
one. Yeah, 2018. And his Azir right now, like, you can see how much growth he's made as a player. And I think that last week, yesterday, when he played against Mad Lions, I actually don't think he had the best performance.
No.
I think that he struggled quite a few times. His Cassio, he got caught out, even when he had information on the enemy jungler. I don't think he had the impact and level of play that he would normally want from when we come to playoffs, but in Game 1, I think he really stood out. I think that the way in which he controlled his lane was really good. The way in which he worked with Jankos was, as we saw a lot during the regular season, and I think that he's definitely playing in form, and I think that's what you come to expect from a player like PERKZ when you look at high-intense games where he's playing against the best opponents. He seems to just instinctively level up and play on another playing field entirely. So it's always a joy to watch him play, especially in the finals.
Well, we always used to talk about, the Fnatic playoffs buff. Like, in the end, everyone beats everyone and Fnatic wins. It now feels like, in the end, everyone beats everyone and PERKZ wins. Like, there's a reason this guy's the most decorated EU player ever. The only player to have 6 titles. Like Rekkles, who is probably he is the most decorated on Fnatic, only has 4. Soaz and Yellowstar have 5. PERKZ is the only guy standing atop that heap with 6 championships. And now he's looking to make it 7. He'd be the only player to hit that, and he would actually match Fnatic's record as a team just by himself. G2 looking to equal that 7 titles. We have 3 minutes until we're on into the game, so we'll just be chatting for a few moments longer. And there were a few moments in that last game, Vedius, where Fnatic looked like they were able to take a bit of an advantage. You know, early on, Caps getting caught out, even though he got those first couple of kills. Do you think there's like obvious avenues for Fnatic to fight in this game?
Well, I mean, I think that in the the problem is Kassadin is just not good at fighting early game. He just isn't. At level 6, if you find a successful gank mid, it's not like he does nothing. He definitely can get very strong very quickly, but because you normally go for a tier so that you have Seraph. Sometimes you don't always go for it. Some Kassadin players just go for Rod of Ages. Some Kassadin players go for both. It's very much a preference, depending on how hard you want to scale. But until you get that Lich Bane, you don't really start like one-shotting people, and levels are also very important. The Kassadin level 16 power spike is the one that everyone knows and often fears in solo queue, because you can be stomping your games for a very long time, and then all of a sudden Kassadin's level 16 and no one can 1v1 him anymore, and that's kind of what Fnatic
4v1 him, never mind 1v1.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what Fnatic is looking at in this situation. And the biggest problem for Kassadin is he takes a long time to get to that point, but once he does finally get to that point is when Fnatic will really be online. So really, a lot of eyes will be on the mid lane for Fnatic in this game, and we'll have to see if he can live up to the expectations.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Nemesis can really step up, see how Fnatic are able to do. I believe we have another pause coming out of the pause that we were meant to be coming out of there, so we'll be going just getting that sorted as quickly as we can possibly do it. League officials, of course, doing their best, especially considering, you know, they're at home too. It's very difficult for them to sort everything out, right? Like, I can't even unmute my mic at the right time. I can't imagine all of the things that they have to do.
Yeah, thank you everyone at home for bearing with us. Of course, everyone is super excited to watch this final. We've already had a fantastic game 1, and we want to make sure that everyone is comfortable, everyone is happy, because of course it's extremely important to everyone. So both G2 and Fnatic need to be feeling comfortable, need to be ready. So we're just making sure that everything is good. We're double checking, triple checking, and that's why you're listening to us for a little bit longer. But in terms of an expectation and kind of looking at the game, G2 going for a very, very, very similar comp to the last game. They have 4 of the 5 same picks, with Zac pretty much doing the same thing as Ornn, being moved up into the top lane. G2 again with the double tank Enchanter setup, having the Lulu to provide more peel in the backline, with Jankos and Wunder acting as a front line. Meanwhile, Fnatic looking to play more of a split push style. They might have to wait a little bit before the Kassadin comes online, but it's very much about setting up this Kassadin for success. So a little bit of adaptation coming out from the Fnatic camp to try and bring us to a 1-1 in this series.
And we'll see if they can do it, because there is, of course, a discussion, and you know, you check Twitter, you check Reddit, about Fnatic when they face G2. There's just a mental block, right? There seems to be a struggle for them, because against Mad last week, they looked devastating. Like in their first series against Origin, they looked like the best team in playoffs, and we talked about them on the analyst desk as the best team in playoffs. But then in game 1 against G2, maybe it was draft, maybe it was a little bit of nerves. They just weren't able to overcome that hurdle, and historically, they haven't been able to overcome that hurdle either. Summer Split last year, 2 best of 5s. They went 2-0 up in the first one, then got reverse sweep.
I still think they should have 3-0.
Yeah, they should have.
They should have best of 5. Yeah.
Fnatic should have won it 3-0, but G2 once again just seemed to be the kryptonite. They seem to be just a team that Fnatic cannot consistently beat, and it gets to a point where you wonder whether it is just their Achilles heel.
But it also, like, my issue with that perspective is that it suggests that Fnatic can't perform against G2, and I don't think that's true.
Oh, they definitely can.
I just think that I just think that G2 goes onto another level whenever they play against Fnatic, because of how heated the rivalry is, right? And I think that Fnatic did everything that they could have done in that last game. And a lot of the time we were talking about, you can see what Fnatic is clearly trying to do here. They just couldn't quite pull off the execution. And from early game tower dives to mid game team fights, every single time you could see how proactive Fnatic was trying to be. They were so aware of what they needed to do to stay relevant in that game because of the draft situation that they found themselves in. It just came to execution at the end of the day that they couldn't quite pull off. Now they've gone for a slightly different approach, and the question will come again, can they get Nemesis to a point where he can be strong enough in a side lane for G2 to constantly have to spread out, and they won't be able to find any of those 5v5 team fights. So ultimately that's going to be one of the big questions as we jump into this game.
And on to Summoner's Rift we go for the second game of this best of 5. Can Fnatic and can Nemesis survive long enough to take over the game? That is the big question that is on everyone's lips, or at least on yours and mine, Vedius.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at where the junglers start this time around. Remember that Rekkles and Hylissang went for an early invade through the tri-bush on the bot side of the map to get early vision and get information on where Jankos was starting. I thought that they might look to try and invade and split the map. They decided not to do that. Instead, the early game focus was actually to try and go for a gank onto the Sylas, which, when you look back, makes a lot of sense. Sylas was one of the big win conditions for them in that game, and trying to snowball him and get him to a point where he was very strong was very valuable for them. So trying to find those early kills, and then of course failing that early dive, is definitely not what Fnatic want to replicate in this second game. So we can see Jankos starting on his red, so he's going to be pathing towards the bot side of the map, very similar to what we saw in game 1, and Selfmade is going to be doing the same. Of course, both junglers have a lot of options, but typically you will see Jankos on this Jarvan doing something like a red into Wolves, then second buff into Gromp, or he can just do the second buff into Gromp and then look for that early level 3 gank. Meanwhile on the Trundle you have even more options because of how fast your wave clear is, and it looks like he's heading towards... What direction is he going? Is he just going to skip his walls and then go straight towards the bot side of the map? That looks like the path that he's taking.
Just going down here, going to get red, and then perhaps look for, well, one of his other camps. Could of course go for the Razor Beaks, but instead it is just straight across to the red. Jankos actually doing the same. Red,
yep,
straight into the blue buff.
So this suggests to me that Selfmade is looking for the blue into red into PERKZ, so that he can try and match Jankos on the bot side of the map. He will be a little bit slower, of course, because PERKZ take that extra bit of time. Meanwhile, Jankos is going to hit that level 3, and let's see what he does with it. Will he try to come in for a lane gank? Will he try to be hyper-aggressive in the early laning phase? And remember, a lot of what we've been talking about, Medic, is this mid-priority. And you can already see PERKZ has that push. He's gone for an early ward to gain information on what Selfmade might be up to, and G2 want to try and utilize this in the early game to build a bit of an advantage.
Jankos looking for the gank in the bottom lane. He's going to sneak in through the alcove and try and get into that second bush if he can. Mikyx stepping forward. Rekkles and Hylissang still only level 1. Not an easy lane for Tahm Kench to play early on. The Lulu can pretty much just step up to you and harass whenever she wants. And it looks like Jankos is willing just to back away from this one, making sure that Caps and Mickey weren't overextended enough for a gank.
I think they're going for a dive, Medic.
You think they are? He's walked over a ward. Wunder's trading on Bwipo here in the top lane, trying to pick up those bloblets. Bwipo down. Wunder looking for some more healing if he can get it. Bellows Breath comes out. The Bwipo not quite going to connect, and Rekkles and Hylissang still alive in the bottom lane, as Jankos wasn't able to find the dive.
So we saw a couple of things here, Medic. The first thing is that Caps and Mickey are utilizing their range 2v2 to much greater effect this time round. Because Rekkles and Hylissang didn't set up that early invade, and because Mickey and Caps were able to get to lane in time, they felt a lot more comfortable being aggressive. As we actually see a bit of an all-in the bot lane.
But Jankos is here. Hylissang flash forward, and now Jankos could gobble up that catfish with open arms. There's the slow, and Hylissang's going to get knocked up, still has the thick skin, going to use it early on as Caps looks to get the damage in, and Hylissang is low, he's ticking away, one more auto is enough, and Jankos gets first blood.
Wow. Okay, very aggressive play from the Fnatic duo lane. They saw Jankos on the bot side of the map, and he just secured the Scuttle Crab, which means that he was still close enough to be able to make this play happen, which means that we just saw a lot of aggression from Hylissang and Rekkles, and I think it was to try and alleviate some of the pressure from this 2v2. We've been talking a lot about it so far in this series, where Cog Lulu, very strong, very oppressive. So if they found that all in, found those summoner spells, it means that there's a potential for a gank a little bit later on, but of course, Hylissang with the overcommitment of the flash means that Jankos then come in and secure that first blood for G2.
Yeah, and a CS advantage for Caps as well in that bottom lane. Going to be about 10, 12 CS up at the end of this. Rekkles pushing forward, trying to keep Caps around. They've done this before. Hylissang It's one of my favorite Tahm Kench plays. There aren't that many cool mechanical things after the Kasave was taken out. So you gobble up a cannon minion, and then you spit it out closer to your AD carries to make sure you get that Relic Shield stack. Just the little things that make you happy as a support.
Yeah, for sure. And now for Hylissang, after seeing Caps and Mikyx reset, is going to try and get some deep vision. He's currently sitting on 2 control wards, and as you can see, he's going to use that to deny some vision from G2 as well. We were talking a lot about the bot side. We also have to go back to top lane, because Wunder had to use his flash. Medic.
Yep.
He tried to go for an all-in against Bwipo, and Bwipo reminded him how powerful Ornn is at pretty much every stage of the game. Strong duelist, while also being a tank, while also pretty much doing everything else in between. And he was able to force that flash out from Wunder. So this could be an opportunity for Fnatic to look for later, because now we see that with Flash gone from Mikyx and Flash gone from Wunder, Selfmade now actually has a couple of options at his disposal. Once Bwipo hits 6, there's very easy setup on the top side of the map, but currently he is pathing towards bot. They could be looking for a potential early Drake, or he could have his eyes set on seeing if he can come in for a cheeky lane gank against Mikyx.
We'll see if he's able to do it. Right now, Jankos is waiting just around the corner. Selfmade coming in through the river. Caps has the flash, has the heal to get away from this. Selfmade going in, looking for the pillar. It's going to land it on Mikyx, but here comes the turnaround as Jankos joins the fray. More just to force Fnatic away than anything else. Fnatic very quick to retreat from that fight.
So you can see Fnatic's early game plan is really to try and put Caps and Mikyx down. They don't want to allow this free farming lane for the Kog'Maw and the Lulu, and they're pretty committed to finding this play. Now Nemesis has hit level 6. He's pushed in the mid wave, and he started to make his way through the river. Bwipo also has the teleport, and G2 recognize, okay, too dangerous, we've got to disengage, we don't want to take this gamble, especially with Selfmade sitting at so much HP. Bit of a dangerous play here from Jankos.
He can just walk away from that one. Yeah, and now Selfmade, as you say, Nemesis, as you say, got towards that level 6. It's actually relatively even in farm with PERKZ as well. We haven't seen too much jungle attention around that mid lane, and now the cast then becomes pretty difficult to gank. If you're using that Rift Walk wisely, you should be able to get away. Wunder with the Let's Bounce going to stop Bwipo from landing the Call of the Forge God. Wunder still has his passive. Bwipo walking away, doesn't really have too much mana left as Wunder continues to get the auto attacks in, but can't quite get the final ones to kill Bwipo. We'll be able to force Bwipo away from the tower because Jankos is on his way up.
Oh, he knows that Bwipo is low. He has his eyes set on a kill. Jankos only level 5. It is dangerous to dive Bwipo. The question is, does he have enough mana to stop this from happening? Let's see as G2 look to get another kill.
Demacian standard comes down. Bwipo still standing by the turret, and because Selfmade could be in the area, because he could be on his way, Jankos decides quite wisely to back away.
Exactly that, Medic. You hit the nail on the head, and I think that Selfmade has very much been in the right place at the right time so far in this game. His decision to path towards bot meant that that early dive that Jankos was looking for was not a possibility. On top of that, they were able to path through bot when Rekkles and Hylissang had the push, and Caps and Mikyx wanted to reset, and that allowed them to secure the Ocean Drake, and now his path up back towards topside prevented the counter or the dive rather happening onto Bwipo. So Selfmade doing a good job of controlling Jankos or mitigating what he wants to do in this early game, but G2 still feeling very comfortable. And if we could just quickly swap over to the gold to see where some of the differences are, you can see that G2 is sitting on about a 1k advantage, and it's largely just sprinkled throughout. You can see advantages picked up on Mikyx, small advantage for PERKZ, small advantage for Jankos, and these small advantages across the board for G2 have netted them a 1k gold lead for now.
They are one dragon behind though, and Rekkles and Hylissang now looking to calm up. There's still 3 minutes before this Infernal Dragon spawns, so perhaps they're looking for a Rift-Herald play. Hylissang yet to get towards that level 6, so doesn't have the Abyssal Voyage, and I don't think that ward was spotted out with the Scryer's Bloom. So Rekkles and Hylissang were in full vision as they walked up towards the mid lane, but it does look like Fnatic are saying, okay, we're going to swap sides of the map and go towards this Herald.
Subtlety is not what Fnatic is after.
No, come on.
They pushed in bot, and they used their prior bot lane to rotate up through mid into the Rift Herald. And I think this is smart, because the reality is Kassadin against Azir, you can't get mid priority. So by forcing him out, by using numbers, that gives Fnatic the opportunity to take in. What we're seeing from G2 is what we often see from G2. They're actually fine sacrificing these early Rift Heralds and early Dragons when they believe that they have a scaling advantage. And so they're going to disengage from this, and they're going to play for plates.
Oh, Bwipo.
Double TP's bot.
Oh, Bwipo staring into the eyes of death, and those eyes are the double TP from G2. Shurima shuffles him back, and he's gone. Bwipo was like, guys, it's fine, I can defend the turret. And G2 like, not today, my friend.
Well, Double TP invested will give time for Nemesis to be able to push in this wave as G2 secure themselves another kill, but as you can see, Fnatic making that crossplay happen on the top side of the map. Typically, Ornn is quite good at holding the line, especially when it comes to tower dives, but against 5 people, even Ornn has limits, so unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to stay alive. This means that G2 will get some plates bot. Fnatic should be able to secure first tower of the game in top, and this should equalize the gold between Fnatic and G2.
So I think the important thing there is seeing how much gold Rekkles got out of that trade and how much gold Caps got out of the trade. Because actually, even on CS, Caps has an extra kill and is slightly ahead in gold, but Rekkles getting plates shared across him and Selfmade and Hylissang actually reduces the total amount of gold that is being funneled into this Aphelios. So Caps is ever so slightly ahead in terms of AD carry gold, although Fnatic are trying to reduce that gold amount between the two teams.
Yeah, that's very fair. And he's someone that you definitely have to be afraid of. We saw how powerful Caps could be. Even though he was so far behind Rekkles in Game 1, he was still pumping out a huge amount of damage, and that is, of course, because Lulu the Enchanter, you get all those bonus buffs because of the itemization that you get on her as well, which then just makes Kog'Maw that much more obnoxious. But now what we should see is Fnatic start to split up the map a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised to see Nemesis move off towards a side lane. He's probably not going to be scared of Wunder killing him or PERKZ killing him, while PERKZ may be able to push him in. I'm actually a little surprised to see that Rekkles and Hylissang didn't actually make their way towards the mid lane. I think that in terms of how the current wave is set up, it would have been a little bit safer, but they're making this choice to try and funnel more plates into Rekkles is what I think, and they want to try and put him into a position where he can still also be a big carry threat. But my only concern is, as we saw in the previous game, it's very difficult for Rekkles to close the gap or like get within close range. Ooh, as we see a bit of an engage.
G2 trying to force the flash out of Hylissang here. He's holding on to it for dear life, and Selfmade's coming around the corner. Hylissang still with his flash up. Will be able to get away. Caps thinking about blast coming across the wall. Won't do it. Bwipo in the mid lane is going to face the pain of PERKZ and Wunder, but Selfmade's on his way as well. Bwipo's just going to take a bit of chunk damage out here. Even with the Let's Bounce coming out, Selfmade able to join the fray and stop his teammate from falling.
So a couple of small skirmishes that don't really amount to a lot. We can see that because of the damage that Fnatic has sustained, they will be forced to disengage from the river. G2 is now looking for a collapse onto Rekkles and Hylissang.
Rekkles gets the double Moonlight Vigil stun. Jankos, of course, doesn't have the ult. There's the heal from Rekkles. Going to get knocked up with the Wild Growth, though. Good Devour from Hylissang will keep Rekkles alive, and now the fight is going to turn because the teleport's coming in from Nemesis. He joins the fight, still only level 10. Doesn't have that second point in his ultimate, but Wunder has to flash away. PERKZ coming in from the side, but we're not here. Doesn't have the TP to join the fight, and PERKZ can get a supreme flank off. There's one down as Rekkles falls. Nemesis trying to run away as well as PERKZ is just shredding through them. Hylissang's going to get the passive out of Wunder, but that's not going to be enough as he falls as well. 3 kills to 0 in favor of G2.
And it was Fnatic choosing to go for the re-engage when they should have just looked to back off. They weren't in a position to collapse for this, and G2 is just going to walk away as the overwhelming advantage. They now sit with 5 kills to 0. They have a 2k gold lead. The Infernal Drake is on the board as well, and let's have a look back at how this happened. So you can see that G2 is in a position to collapse faster. Look at the minimap. You can see how Trundle has to take the long way around, but Fnatic's thinking, hey, we have TPs, we can punish for G2 for overextending. But G2 isn't overextending. They have a numbers advantage. Even with the TP in, Fnatic is still a member down, and they're putting so much attention on trying to kill Wunder and Mikyx that Jankos is still alive and PERKZ arrives first. Ornn is still making his way through the jungle, which means that at every point, G2 always has these numbers advantage. And we talked about Kassadin. He just doesn't offer that much damage this early on into the game, especially only at level 10, which means that Fnatic tried to force a fight where they weren't in a position to do so, and then G2 aptly punished them.
PERKZ chasing Nemesis off towards the side here as Wunder comes in with the stretching strike, is going to get the connection, but Nemesis should just be able to get his way away, and I do think that, you know, Fnatic do get the second Dragon of the game. They get an Infernal, they get something out of that, but they are falling further and further behind in terms of gold here, VoD. It's 1,300, and PERKZ is starting to get stronger and stronger. Nash's Tooth complete, and he's 2-0-2 on this Azir. Last game he had such a stellar performance on the Azir. You have to wonder when we get towards team fights whether PERKZ will just start taking over the game once again.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. PERKZ Azir has definitely been great to watch as we see G2 forcing the flash out from Bwipo in the mid lane, and he's having another fantastic game on the champion. In the very early game, we didn't see him trying to roam around the map at all, which is fine, very normal for an Azir, but the way that he constantly had pressure on Nemesis meant that it was hard for Nemesis to really do much, and you can see that Nemesis has done a good job of closing that farm gap and still being relevant in the game, but as we mentioned, until he hits that Sheen point, he's not really that scary. Yet to hit level 11, won't have that second point in his ultimate just yet, so Fnatic still trying to play the wait game for now, but G2 with the position that they're currently in, with the Nash's Tooth done on PERKZ, with the Blade of the Ruin King done on Caps, these are strong spikes that have just been hit for G2, so they can feel confident trying to force more of these fights. They can look for more objectives to try and play for, and they can just keep saying to Fnatic, hey, do you want to 5v5 us? Because that's kind of what we want, and if you're going to keep fighting us, we know we're going to win, so Fnatic need to try and slow the game down a little bit more and allow time for Nemesis to really ramp up.
And that's why Fnatic getting those 2 dragons is actually such a big benefit for them, because if they had lost those, G2 would be able to force those fights even more readily.
That's
like
true,
at 3 dragons, at 4 dragons, G2 would be saying, well, Fnatic, you have to come at us, otherwise we're going to get this Cloud Soul. Now we're a good 20-25 minutes away from G2 approaching a Soul, and they're going to get the Rift Herald, but it's not too consequential at this point in the game. The outer towers are basically dead. It's 2 for 2 on either side, and mid turret does still stand for G2, which is pretty big.
The big thing about this Herald Medic is, oh, hang on, we might not have time for that. Nemesis should recognize that he's being collapsed on here. Does now have the level 11, which means that his ultimate is about a 4-second cooldown rather than the 6-second. It usually goes 6, 4, down to 2. And that's why that 16 is also extremely important for him. But yeah, the thing about this Herald is it allows G2 to actually keep the pace of the game accelerated, because now they can use it to threaten these tier 2 towers and keep pressure on Fnatic, who is still waiting for Nemesis to get to a point where he can really threaten in a side lane. And you'll notice him still sitting in the top lane, no TP available, but more farm, more resources are just being funneled into him. He now actually has a CS advantage over PERKZ. So Fnatic clearly have the right idea. They're investing their gold where they can, and they're just trying to buy time.
Right now, G2 setting up 4 players strong in the mid lane, looking to see perhaps if they could get a push. They're going to try and collapse on Nemesis in the top lane as they clear out vision in the river. Nemesis, aware of this, of course, just backs away. It's a pretty easy retreat for him. Essence Reaver complete on Rekkles. He's now gone as much attack speed as he can. He wants to attack fast. He's got triple dagger. Bwipo's going to use the ult in the bottom lane. I feel this is more just to push Wunder away from the turret than anything else, but with the Abyssal Voyage coming in, actually the chase is on. Bwipo, you don't have a knock-up, you don't have a way to stop him from getting out. Wunder just TPs away. That's alcove gaming for you right there.
Yeah, that is indeed some high-quality alcove gaming. Bwipo was caught unawares there. He thought the Wunder was still trying to disengage, and turns out that he was just TPing out. Now, the brighter side for Fnatic in this play is that G2 now have no teleports. But this was also just a big mistake from Wunder, who should have recognized that his entire team was much more playing towards the top side of the map. He was far too overextended in the bot lane, greeding for that tower, and he ends up getting punished for it. So Fnatic can now use this to force G2 to play through 2 lanes rather than play through 3. And we'll see what comes off the back of this. With the Drake spawning soon, G2's next focus will of course be on the bot side of the map, and you can see they are now setting that up with the Azir pushing in the mid lane, with Zac coming in bot, with the push in through the river. They're going to try and force Fnatic out of their side of the jungle, while Kassadin does have the TP. Fnatic are just going to be forced to disengage as G2 now control this side of the map.
PERKZ can just shuffle away here, looking to get away from Bwipo. Exhaust has gone down on him as well, but he does still have the flash with the Emperor's Divide. He can stop Bwipo, but a great use of the Bella's Breath from Bwipo meant he walked straight through the wall. Those bouncers not earning their paycheck today, but Dragon is up in 23 seconds. Rift Herald has been used down towards that bottom lane. And I do wonder, actually, if Fnatic continue pushing the way they're pushing, do they lose an inhibitor tower here? Do they lose an inhibitor? Because they don't have the Abyssal Voyage to come across. They've just got 1 recall off. It's Bwipo. Nemesis is still pushing in the top lane. He does have TP to join this fight. And looks like G2 will settle just to get Prio in the bottom lane and then turn back towards the Dragon.
So a lot of cool and clever things just happened from both teams here. And it's a great example of how both these teams are very good at adapting on the fly. G2 are setting up towards the bot side of the map, but Fnatic recognize this and attack PERKZ with 3 members in the mid lane to catch him off guard. This then gives them prio over mid, and the adaptation that G2 made was using the Herald bot. We don't have time as another fight is kicking off.
Hylissang still has the flash teleport coming in. That's Bwipo joining this fight. Nemesis is coming in from the middle lane as well, and now perhaps G2 will have overextended because PERKZ is yet to join this fray. Call of the Forge God coming out. Bwipo's going to land the knock-up onto Jankos, who flashes away himself, and now Fnatic funneled into the river. PERKZ has the flank position, but he's on a control ward, so he's spotted out. Wunder jumping forward, lands on Hylissang. Bwipo forced off towards the bottom side of the fight. PERKZ trying to get the damage down, but Nemesis is still very healthy, but so is Rekkles in this fight. Bwipo coming in, can't quite land the knock-up. Selfmade has to get out of the fight as Bwipo is the first to fall. G2 looking for the fight as they continue to push forward in the river, and Hylissang is forced away. But you can still see Rekkles and Nemesis still very healthy. Nemesis doesn't have that much mana. Wunder's going to be the first to fall on the side of G2. Fnatic opening up. Rekkles trying to do what he can, but Jankos with the stopwatch will stop them in their tracks. The sentry goes down, and G2 retreat back towards the Dragon.
And you can see in the front-to-back team fights how it just seems easier for G2 to play. Nemesis is not really threatening the backline. PERKZ and Caps were just left untouched, while the people being melted were Jankos and Wunder, who were just sitting there soaking and absorbing so much of the damage that Fnatic was trying to put out. When we look at how these things played out, you can see that initially Fnatic is trying to claim control of the river, which doesn't belong to them. They think that G2 have reset, and then they get caught unawares. Then they go for the re-engage, and I think this is where Fnatic overcommit, because yes, Nemesis is zoning, PERKZ out from the fight, but look, Nemesis is actually quite low on mana. He's stacking up his ultimate, but now the goal for Fnatic should be to collapse onto PERKZ, but they can't, because Wunder is just in the front line, soaking up all this damage. Look at Nemesis just getting zoned away. He wants to dive onto PERKZ, but he can't get anywhere near him. Meanwhile, Rekkles is doing what he can to try and melt through this front line, but again, Caps and PERKZ are just left completely untouched, and this is the front-to-back team fighting that we saw in the previous game that was so difficult for Fnatic to play through. Yes, they can attack the tanks, but the tanks do such a good job of soaking up damage that the backline from G2 is just melting through the rest of Fnatic.
G2 now fourth, well, 3,500 gold ahead, 7-1 the scoreline. Fitting that we are in Berlin for that to be the score, as now they are setting up around this Baron. They'll melt through it. You've got Leandri's complete, you've got Ginsu's and Blade of the Ruined King as well on Caps, and they're just going to start it up.
What?
So Nemesis has teleport, Bwipo does not. They have seen. They know that they're there. They know that they're doing it as Nemesis is going to teleport into this, but this could be another quick Baron from G2. I don't know if Fnatic are going to get there in time because there's only 1,000 HP left on it, and now it's gone. The Call of the Forge God coming out. Fnatic have to look to try and take this fight because G2, if they get out alive, they can just push through the side lane. Selfmade's already dead. Jankos takes him, and now Rekkles trying to open up, but he's been caught in Cataclysm, devoured up by Hylissang, but you have to watch Rekkles as he is spat out into all of G2. 4-0 in favor of G2. They are demolishing Fnatic in these fights.
And everything is falling apart once again for Fnatic. They funnel into the Baron pit thinking that they can finally get a one-team fight versus G2, but we saw artillery tank Caps. That man did not move, and he was just spitting out all the damage onto the entire Fnatic lineup. G2 are going to secure the Baron, they're going to take 2 tier 2 towers, and they're going to look to reset and look to take game 2. Let's jump into the replay, and as you mentioned, Medic, this ward spotted G2 out, but G2's Baron is so quick that it doesn't matter, and I just want you to watch Caps in this situation because he looks like he's trapped, right? The pillar is there, but look, he just stands still. He just melts through Selfmade, he melts through Nemesis, even with an exhaust, he melts through Bwipo, and this is the power of Lulu Kog'Maw. It used to be a menace, Medic. I forget which worlds it was, but it was the go-to bot lane, and if you don't shut it down, there's nothing you can do, and with 2 items, Caps was just unstoppable.
Pretty sure it was 2018, Vedius, the Ardent Sensor meta. I didn't enjoy it too much myself.
Wasn't that 2017?
It might have been 17. It might have been 17.
The Ardent Sensor meta, man.
The big thing we've been asking this entire game is, well, right now we're asking, can Bwipo get away? Because one more order would be enough. Living Artillery coming down from Caps. Can't quite find the second connection. Can't quite find the third. The fourth is dodged by Bwipo, and he will escape. Has the Abyssal Master try and help him out against some of this damage, but it's really not working so far. And I do want to bring attention to the fact that Nemesis is still only level 14. We wondered if he could get to 16 on this Kassadin. Could he take over the game? Well, in his LEC history, he's played Kassadin 3 times and lost every time. This would have been lucky number 4 if he could take the win, but right now it's not looking to be the case. G2 opening up the base, pushing in, forcing a Fnatic onto the back foot. You can see PERKZ down in the bottom lane by himself, getting up towards that inhibitor. Now the mid-inhib falls. Second on the menu for G2 as Fnatic find themselves defenseless, helpless against the oncoming storm that is G2 in this game. The Nexus Tower is now the focus. 23 minutes in, G2 are trying to up the speed from the last game. The tempo is rising and G2 are diving into the base, into the Nexus turrets as the shutdown comes out. Jankos already gone down, but Caps is unstoppable. Kills the Ornn, and now Bwipo is dead. Nemesis trying to do what he can. Wunder's low, but now the Nexus towers are just the target for G2. They could just end the game right here, right now. Nemesis stepping forward, trying to get onto Cap. He jumps in, but immediately he's exhausted. Pops the stopwatch. PERKZ doing what he can down towards the bottom side, zoning out. Rekkles going to shuffle them back into the team as well, and that's the ace for G2. That's the ace for G2, and they go 2-0 up in this series.
That's a 24-minute game, Medic. They absolutely smashed Fnatic, and a lot of it was just off of two massive team fights. There was that one in the bot lane, and then of course there was that rush of the Baron from the side of G2. And like right now, my questions are, Fnatic, what is going on in the draft? Right, we can see small adaptations, but right now, it just feels like that G2, the fact that they could run the same composition twice and play exactly the same way twice, Fnatic need to find a way around this, or this is just going to be a 3-0 series for G2.
After the break, we'll hear more from G2's Ocelot, as his team is just one win away from their 7th LEC title.
Let's go G2! Let's go G2!
Let's go G2!
Charged up. Hello, everybody. Let the game begin.
Prove yourself in this 1v1 League of Legends tournament. Learn more on redbull.com/soloq.
Welcome back, everyone, to our expert panel, where G2 is absolutely dominating Fnatic in these first 2 games. And I have to say, I'm very disappointed as to kind of how not close this series has been so far, after kind of all of the build-up and all the strong things we saw from Fnatic in the playoffs so far. What is going on with this Fnatic squad?
Well, I think you...
Oh, sorry, wrong chat. Go.
No, it's fine, Yamato. You're the draft guy. You take the draft. I'm sure that's where you're going to go.
Honestly, I just wanted to... Sorry, I'm very sorry, Frosk, but I'll make you proud. The draft, I think the main issue still is, you spoke about it, Frosk, that you expected a fiery Fnatic early game where they just attack. And both of these drafts don't give them those options. Tom Kench, Kassadin, and then an Ornn Zac match up top. Sure, maybe you can Trundle Pillar, get a kill for your Ornn, but it's not going to make a difference in the game. And G2 have shown us that they can play with patience. When they get to play with patience and they choose their timings, it is very, very easy to decipher when they are strong. Their composition has the engage tools to get on the town when they want to and also easily kite back, while Fnatic's composition is always in between. What do they really want to accomplish? And I think this Aphelios Tahm Kench doesn't really accomplish anything. What are your thoughts, Froskeren?
No, I'm pretty much completely aligned there. I think that there's a question about dive tools and about blind pick. So we've seen second rotation from G2 every single time, which, surprise, Fnatic will be on blue side again for this 3rd game. I hope to God that they drop the Aphelios priority because it forces you into playing Tahm Kench. Stop doing that. I don't care if I have to see Rekkles on Kai'Sa or Misfortune. Just get him off of Kench. Give him the Leona. Give him a Rakan. Give him Engage. But, there's no dive potential. Fnatic have the Ornn, and they're thinking, okay, we lacked Engage, so we'll trade the Sylas for the Ornn, and this will give us better Engage. But in Aphelios versus Kog'Maw, Aphelios cannot play the game against the range and zone control of the blind Azir and then the Jarvan. The reason why they're snap grabbing the Jarvan so quickly is he just jumps on top of Rekkles and it's unplayable. So I think 2 things are happening. Fnatic are hard losing draft, and then 2, G2 are playing out of their mind disciplined. This is not a G2 that is diving and throwing away things. This is G2 playing with precision, playing very reserved, and completely cleaning it up. I don't know if Grabs took him into a back room and was like, listen guys, if you guys continue to just int it, I'm pulling all of the plug on all of you. But I've never seen G2 this clean.
Honestly, I'm getting serious vibes. I remember last year when I was so confident and even predicting that they would win the World Championship because they gave me those vibes,
Yeah, where was that team?
Right now, this is, the best League of Legends I've seen in a very, very long time. It's so crazy clean. The drafts are very creative. They are bringing up champions that haven't been played before. Honestly, my mind is just blown from the level of G2's performance.
I have a question, though. Because when we look at these other games, right, we say, well, Mad, we can't take that completely into account when they beat G2 because G2 wasn't playing well. Fnatic isn't playing that well either, so do you have to subtract that from how well G2 is playing? Or what does that play here? Because I just want to make sure that we're using the same lens to look at all of these best of 5s.
I do think that what Yamato brought up was really fair, which is you want Fnatic to play hardcore aggressive early. Fnatic usually have the best level 1s, they usually have the cleanest early game, and they're not given the tools to do that in their composition because they don't have mid priority, because this Azir is just jamming them under the tower, and they had the option that they could have gone for the Lulu. Coming out of secondary ban phase, they picked the Kog'Maw over the Lulu first, so they revealed that they were going to play Lulu Kog, and we know that Nemesis actually plays Lulu. Lulu's a hardcore, long-time answer or soft answer into the Azir. He's not going to win you, or she's not going to win you lane priority, but she is an option that you can take and separate this, and I'm curious if that's the route that they're going to go, if Fnatic leave the Azir open, or kind of allow this Azir combination to go again, or maybe they just ban out Kog'Maw completely.
I just feel like it's so hard to judge Fnatic based off of the opportunities that they've been given in their drafts. From the get-go, we saw Jarvan ganking bottom side so many times, and he has the option to do so. The Trundle Pillar, sure, maybe you can make something happen, but we saw only desperation. Kassadin's going to be under the turret the entire game. Same thing with the Veigar. He's going to, do fine into Azir, but Azir gets priority in this matchup. And I think what Fnatic needs is opportunity. When they get to that point in time where they get ahead somewhere, they are very good at transitioning and translating pressure in one lane to a different lane. But that first initial step is not happening. G2 get to wait for their opportunities. They choose them beautifully, and then they are the ones that transfer the pressure and then eventually just win out the game because they're choosing their fights because they're allowed to do so, largely because of the draft.
So let's take a look at one of the fights then. There weren't that many because G2 was honestly very reserved up until the moment where they pulled the trigger. And I think we also have to just look at some personal or individual performances on the side of Fnatic. Bwipo, we talked up so much, is not giving us that much. The bot lane is not giving us that much. It's just not working on any front.
Yeah, it's the poise that you've seen from G2, and I'm glad that you do call out Bwipo. I mean, we hate to say it because Bwipo's had kind of a phenomenal back half of the split. His playoffs looked really strong, but you are not getting that Bwipo that Fnatic really need. But this is a perfect example. The fact that G2 play this fight so slowly, that they engage Fnatic, they even pull them forward, kind of bait them like, oh no, you can win this fight, and they just buy time for PERKZ to walk from mid lane to clean up the back half of that. And that's kind of 2 back-to-back games where this Azir has been gifted all of this gold and all of these kills in very early skirmishes that just kind of get collapsed to G2's favor. And at that point, we're just typing like GG to each other. We're like, I guess we're going to game 3. Like, hopefully this isn't a 3-0.
Oh yeah, I gotta say, I did get that inclination by watching it, just the way Fnatic got blown away. We talked a lot about kind of PERKZ and what he means to this organization and the pedigree he has and the fact that we were not completely convinced about his performance up until this point. But you see again that when it matters most, he can just turn it on like no one else in Europe can.
It's just so crazy to me, you know, looking at the history. I remember there was a time where they went to 5 games with Splice and they won it, and then all of a sudden it's like, PERKZ, where are you? Then he just wakes up because the games matter so much more. I remember 2018 when G2 was in shambles. They didn't get, like, they lost first round in playoffs, and then all of a sudden PERKZ going to the World Championship just smashes RNG. 2019 the same thing, on in the AD carry position, continuing with that trend of being so clutch, and now today as well, after a rough playoffs, just delivers big time on this Azir pick.
But now we're in a situation where coming into match point for G2, like Fnatic ran basically the same thing back to back. So I obviously hope that they're going to change something. Whereas G2 on the other side probably changed nothing. You're like, why don't we run it for a third time? See if they can actually figure out what to do. So I expect like G2 to have the same type of game strategy. What I want to see different from Fnatic, contest 2v2 mid priority. Like, pick up that Gragas. Don't let it get banned from you in second half. I know that like Jarvan versus Gragas isn't the greatest matchup for you, but Selfmade is a phenomenal Gragas player, and it gives him something to work with other than just throwing a trundle pillar into a lane and be like, I guess that was a great gank. And I'm trying not to curse, but like force mid priority. Have a champion that can push back and not just let PERKZ walk from mid lane into these side lanes to start picking up these kills. Get there first and make a difference. I'm flabbergasted. What is happening? Give Nemesis and Selfmade some agency.
What I'm hearing here is 2 games in a row, a big loss in the draft from the side of Fnatic. Something needs to change if they want to stay in the race, but they're only 1 game away from getting knocked down and not being able to reclaim that title from G2 for the 3rd split in a row. G2 on match point, and we'll also get a talk with Ocelot, the CEO, of course, of G2 Esports after the break, so stick around.